The remote slipped from her fingers, clattering uselessly onto the thick rug. Emily's breath hitched, trapped in her lungs. She stared at the screen, not at the movie they were supposed to be watching, but at the reflection in the dark glass. Behind her, on their own patio, she saw her wife. She saw Sarah, the woman she had promised her life to, locked in a passionate, desperate kiss with another woman. It wasn't a friendly peck. It was a kiss of fire and secrecy, and it was happening in their home. The pain of betrayal is a unique, suffocating thing. It's a cold blade that doesn't just cut you, it hollows you out, leaving a space where trust used to live. How could this be real? How could 7 years of shared mornings, private jokes, and quiet nights be erased by this one silent image in the glass? Every memory she had suddenly felt like a lie. Until Emily finally confronted her, her voice trembling. Sarah looked up from her book, her eyes wide with a genuine, heartbreaking confusion. She swore she had been inside all night. She swore it wasn't her. And as Emily replayed the image in her mind, she realized something was wrong. The way Sarah had moved, it was too aggressive. The smile she gave the other woman, it was cruel. She was about to discover a secret that had been buried for decades, a secret so dark it threatened to swallow them whole. She had caught her wife in a passionate lesbian kissing, but it wasn't her. It was her evil twin sister. And the nightmare was only just beginning. If this story touches your heart, please give it a like to help our channel grow. We love hearing from you, so please comment with your name and where you are watching from. And if you don't want to miss how this shocking story unfolds, subscribe and hit the bell. Now let's begin our story. The evening had started like any other, which in hindsight, was perhaps the cruelest part of it all. Emily and Sarah had a routine, one born from 7 years of comfortable, quiet love. Friday nights were sacred. They would order takeout from a small place down the street, pick a movie they had both been waiting to see, and settle onto their plush sofa, their feet tangled together under a soft blanket. It was simple, and to Emily it was perfect. The world outside could be loud and chaotic, but in this living room with the scent of Sarah's lavender lotion and the shared silence, Emily felt a profound sense of peace. Tonight, however, the peace felt thin. Emily had suggested a thriller, but Sarah seemed distracted, tapping her phone screen with a nervous energy Emily hadn't seen in a while. "Everything okay, honey?" Emily had asked, pausing the movie previews. Sarah had jumped, startled, before offering a tight smile. "It's fine. It's work. You know, a big project is launching." She tossed the phone onto the cushion beside her. "Let's watch." "I'm sorry." Emily had let it go. Everyone had stressful days. She dimmed the lights, the room falling into a soft glow, and pressed play. The movie started, full of shadows and suspense, but Emily's attention wasn't on the screen. She was watching Sarah. Her wife, usually so present, was staring blankly at the television, her brow furrowed. A knot of unease tightened in Emily's stomach. Something was wrong. She decided to make tea. Maybe that would help them relax. "I'll be right back," she whispered, unwinding herself from the blanket. She padded into the kitchen, the chill of the tile floor seeping into her feet. She filled the kettle, her mind racing. Was Sarah upset with her? Had she forgotten an anniversary? No, that was next month. Was it money? They were comfortable. As the kettle began to hiss, Emily glanced back into the living room. Sarah was no longer on the sofa. The throw blanket was pooled on the floor where she had been sitting. Emily frowned. She walked to the edge of the kitchen, looking around. "Sarah." She heard a sound. A soft murmur coming from the back patio. The glass sliding door was open just a crack, letting in the cool night air. Curiosity mixed with that persistent unease pulled Emily forward. The living room was dark, and the movie played to an empty audience. As Emily got closer to the glass door, she prepared to slide it open, perhaps to tease Sarah for hiding outside. But she stopped. The television, which was now in a dark, shadowy scene, had turned the living room glass into a near-perfect mirror. It reflected the room behind her, and through the open crack, it reflected the patio outside. And that's when she saw it. It was Sarah. It had to be. The same long dark hair. The same profile she kissed goodnight every evening. The same blue robe Emily had bought her for her last birthday. She was standing by the railing, but she was not alone. Another woman was with her, a woman Emily didn't recognize, with short blonde hair. Emily's heart didn't just sink, it plummeted. She watched, frozen, as the blonde woman reached up and touched Sarah's face. And then, Sarah leaned in. The kiss was not hesitant. It was deep, consuming, and desperate. Emily watched as her wife's hands gripped the other woman's arms, pulling her closer. It was a kiss of familiarity, of a long-held secret finally allowed to breathe in the darkness. The reflection showed Sarah tilt her head, a movement Emily knew intimately, but this time it was for someone else. The kettle shrieked in the kitchen, a piercing metallic scream that shattered the silence. On the patio the two figures sprang apart. Sarah looked toward the house, her expression not one of guilt but of sharp, cold annoyance. The blonde woman whispered something and Sarah nodded before slipping back toward the house. Emily couldn't move. The blood had rushed from her head, leaving her dizzy and sick. The kettle continued to scream. Betrayal. The word echoed in the sudden, terrible silence of her mind. This wasn't a work project. This wasn't stress. This was a person. A whole other life. She heard the sliding door close softly. She heard footsteps. Emily? Honey, the kettle. Emily turned, her body moving on autopilot. There stood Sarah, her face a mask of perfect innocence, her blue robe tied neatly at her waist. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Emily's hands were shaking. She stared at the woman she loved, the woman who had just been in another's arms. The scent of the cool night air clung to her, but there was another scent too. A floral perfume that Emily did not own. Who was she? Emily's voice was barely a whisper, a dry, cracked sound. Sarah's brow furrowed in that familiar way, but this time, it didn't look like concern. It looked like a performance. What are you talking about? Who is who? I was just checking the temperature. It felt cold. Don't, Emily said, her voice gaining a sharp edge of pain. Don't lie to me, Sarah. I saw you. In the reflection. On the patio. The color drained from Sarah's face. She looked genuinely, utterly baffled. Emily, what are you saying? I wasn't on the patio with anyone. I've been right here. I just got up when I heard the kettle. The denial was so immediate, so total, that for a fleeting second, Emily doubted her own eyes. Had the dark screen and the shadows played a trick on her? Had she imagined the whole thing? I saw you, Emily repeated louder this time, her hands balling into fists. I saw you kiss her. The woman with the blonde hair. In our house. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of guilt. They were tears of hurt, of deep, profound confusion. Emily, I swear to you on my life, I don't know what you are talking about. I would never ever do that to you. To us. She stepped forward, reaching for Emily's hands, but Emily recoiled, pulling away as if she'd been burned. The woman who stood before her looked like her wife, sounded like her wife, but the image in the glass was burned into her memory. The passion in that kiss was not a mistake. It was not a misunderstanding. Get away from me, Emily whispered, the floor seeming to tilt beneath her feet. Emily, please, Sarah begged, her voice breaking. You have to believe me. It wasn't me. I was right here. But Emily was already backing away, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and agony. She had seen it. She knew what she had seen. But the woman in front of her was swearing her innocence with a conviction that chilled Emily to the bone. One of them was lying. Or was she losing her mind? The hours that followed were the longest of Emily's life. The kitchen, once the warm heart of their home, became a cold, sterile interrogation room. The tea sat untouched, the water long gone cold. Sarah had cried, pleaded, and reasoned, tracing and retracing her steps. She had been on the sofa. She had felt a draft. She had gotten up to check the sliding door, found it ajar, and closed it. She claimed she was outside for no more than 10 seconds, and she was completely alone. I don't understand, Emily, Sarah said, her voice raw from crying. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking. You saw a reflection? In the dark? Could have been anything. It could have been neighbors in their yard, reflected at a strange angle. It was you, Emily insisted, though the granite-like certainty she had felt was beginning to crack, eroded by Sarah's steadfast denial. It was your robe. Your hair. I saw you, Sarah. I saw the kiss. And this blonde woman? Who was she? Sarah asked, her eyes searching Emily's. I don't know any women with short, blonde hair. Not like that. Not intimately. Emily faltered. She had no answer. The woman was a stranger. The entire scenario felt bizarre, theatrical. Yet the emotional impact was devastatingly real. The image of the kiss, the proprietary way Sarah had held the other woman, felt like a physical blow. I don't know who she was, Emily admitted. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. So you think I'm lying? Sarah's voice was quiet, steeped in a pain that felt alarmingly genuine. You think after 7 years I would just bring someone to our home and kiss them on our patio while you're in the next room? Do you really think I am that cruel? That stupid? When she put it like that, it sounded insane. Sarah was the most cautious, loving, and moral person Emily had ever known. She was the one who rescued spiders from the bathtub, the one who always remembered their friends' birthdays, the one who had held Emily through the night when her mother passed away. The idea of her conducting a secret, reckless affair was so profoundly out of character that it seemed impossible. And yet Emily had seen it. I don't know what to think anymore, Emily finally whispered, sinking into the chair opposite her. She buried her face in her hands. I just know what I saw, and it's breaking my heart. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Sarah didn't try to comfort her again. The accusation lay on the table like a physical object, a barrier they couldn't cross. They slept in separate rooms that night, or rather they didn't sleep. Emily lay in the guest room, the sheets cold and unfamiliar, her mind playing the scene in the reflection over and over. She dissected every detail. The height, the robe, the way Sarah tossed her head. It was all her. But then, Sarah's denial. It was so convincing. There wasn't a flicker of guilt, no shifty eyes, no defensiveness that morphed into anger. There was just hurt. A deep, bewildered wound. What if Sarah was right? What if it was a trick of the light? A reflection from the neighbor's house 2 doors down? It was possible, wasn't it? The more she tried to cling to the memory, the more it shimmered and blurred, like a watercolor left in the rain. She was losing her mind. Maybe the stress from her own job, the long hours she'd been pulling, had finally made something snap. Maybe she was projecting an insecurity. The thought made her feel even sicker. Across the hall, Sarah was also awake. She lay in their bed, the space beside her feeling vast and cold. Emily believed it. That was the part that terrified her. She believed she had seen Sarah betray her. Sarah had no explanation. She had been on the sofa, lost in thought about her sister. Her estranged twin sister, Sophia. Sophia had called earlier that day for the first time in 3 years. The call had been brief and cryptic. I'm in town, Sarah. We need to talk. The sound of her voice had sent a jolt of anxiety through Sarah, which is why she had been so distracted during the movie. Sophia was not just a sister, she was a storm. She was chaos and resentment, wrapped in a face identical to her own. Sarah hadn't told Emily about the call. He never knew how. Explaining Sophia was like trying to explain a natural disaster. She's difficult, was all Sarah ever said. But difficult didn't cover the jealousy, the petty cruelties, the way Sophia had always seemed to delight in taking things that belonged to Sarah. Could Sophia be involved? The thought flickered and died. It was too much. Sophia didn't even know where she lived. She couldn't have. And why would she? To kiss a stranger on her patio? It made no sense. No, this was a terrible, horrible misunderstanding between her and Emily. A trick of the light. It had to be. She would make Emily see that in the morning. They would talk it through in the daylight, and this nightmare would be over. The next morning the house was quiet. Emily emerged from the guest room to find Sarah in the kitchen making coffee just like always. But the atmosphere was brittle. Emily, Sarah said softly, her eyes red-rimmed. I've been thinking. I don't want to fight. I love you. What you saw, it wasn't me. I need you to believe that. I will do anything to prove it. Emily looked at her wife, her heart aching. He wanted to believe her. More than anything in the world. To believe her was to return to their life. To not believe her was to detonate everything. I want to, Emily said, her voice thick. I just can't get the image out of my head. Let's recreate it, Sarah said suddenly, her voice desperate. Let's go out on the patio in the dark and look at the reflection. We'll figure it out. Please. But Emily shook her head. The thought of standing out there trying to conjure the phantom again made her feel ill. Not right now. I need some air. I'm going for a walk. She left before Sarah could say another word. The fresh morning air did nothing to clear her head. She walked for miles past the park through the high street, her mind a loop of doubt and pain. She found herself at a small cafe, ordering a coffee she didn't want. As she sat stirring the cup, a shadow fell over her table. Emily? Is that you? Emily looked up. A woman stood there smiling. She had long dark hair, pulled back in a way Sarah never wore hers. She wore a leather jacket and jeans, a stark contrast to Sarah's soft cardigans. But the face, it was Sarah's. Exactly. Emily's heart stopped. Sarah? What are you doing here? The woman laughed, a throaty sound that was nothing like Sarah's. Close. I'm Sophia. Sarah's sister. Her twin sister. She held out a hand. I recognized you from her pictures. It's so lovely to finally meet the woman who stole my sister's life. Emily was so stunned she couldn't speak. She stared at the woman, Sophia, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. It was Sarah's face. The same high cheekbones, the same dark eyes, the same curve of the lips. But everything else was different. The eyes were cold, assessing. The smile didn't reach them. It was a sharp, polished gesture. Sarah was gentle, her energy was warm. This woman was all sharp edges and coiled energy. Twin. Emily finally managed, her voice thin. Sarah never told me she had a twin. Sophia's laugh was brittle. Oh, did she not? Well, that sounds like Sarah. She always did like to edit the boring parts. Or the parts that make her look bad. I'm Sophia. The original, you might say. She slid, uninvited, into the seat opposite Emily. She's mentioned me, surely? The troubled sister. Emily's mind was reeling. Twin. An identical twin. A possible, plausible explanation for what she had seen. But Sarah had sworn she was alone. She said she had a sister, Emily said slowly, choosing her words with care. She said you were estranged. Estranged, Sophia scoffed, flagging down a waiter and ordering an espresso with a sharp snap of her fingers. That's a polite word for it. She means banished. Sarah is very good at getting what she wants and cutting away anyone who gets in her way. But you know that, don't you? No. That's not the Sarah I know, Emily said, feeling a sudden, fierce wave of defensiveness. Sophia leaned forward, her dark eyes glittering with something that looked like amusement or perhaps malice. Oh honey, you don't know Sarah. You know the version she sold you. The sweet, harmless victim. The rescuer of spiders. She smiled as Emily's eyes widened. Oh yes. I know all her little routines. We grew up in the same room. I know her better than she knows herself. The espresso arrived and Sophia downed it in one quick, harsh gulp. The truth, she continued, dabbing her lips with a napkin, is that Sarah is a taker. He took my friends. She took my parents' affection. He took the life I was supposed to have. And now she has you. A beautiful wife, a perfect house. She always wins. Emily felt a cold chill run down her spine. This woman's resentment was palpable, a toxic cloud filling the space between them. What are you doing here, Sophia? I'm in town, Sophia said with a shrug. Visiting. I thought I'd see how the other half lives. And then I see you sitting here looking like your world just ended. Let me guess. Trouble in paradise. Emily's guard went up. That's none of your business. Isn't it? Sophia's smile widened, but it was all teeth. See, I know my sister. When she gets bored or when things get too real, she gets messy. Is that it? Did you catch her being messy? Emily's blood ran cold. Did you catch her? The specificity of the question was alarming. It was as if Sophia already knew. I don't know what you're talking about, Emily said, gathering her purse. It was nice to meet you. But I have to go. Of course. Sophia leaned back, gesturing expansively. Run back to her. But let me give you a piece of advice, Emily. Don't ever trust a mirror. Reflections can be deceptive. She tapped the side of her own face. Especially when there are two of them. Emily fled the cafe, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She didn't just walk, she almost ran. Twin. She has an identical twin. The pieces were slamming into place, but they were forming a picture more terrifying than she could have imagined. The kiss. The stranger. The denial. Sarah had been telling the truth. It wasn't her. It was Sophia. But that realization brought a new wave of horror. Why would Sophia do that? Why would she kiss a stranger on their patio knowing Emily was inside? It was a deliberate act of sabotage. It was designed to be seen. Sophia wanted to destroy their marriage. And the blonde woman? She must have been a part of it. A hired participant, perhaps? Emily's mind raced back to Sarah's behavior. Her distraction during the movie. Her nervousness. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Sophia had called her. She had come to town. Sarah was afraid of what her sister would do. And she hadn't told Emily. That was the part that stung. Sarah, in her fear, had tried to handle this alone. She had left Emily exposed, vulnerable to Sophia's poison. When Emily burst back into the house, Sarah was in the living room, pacing. She looked up, her face pale with anxiety. "Emily, you were gone so long." I met her," Emily interrupted, her voice breathless. "I met Sophia. At the cafe." The terror that flooded Sarah's face was an answer in itself. It was a deep primal fear. "Oh no. Emily. What did she say? What did she do? Why didn't you tell me?" Emily demanded, the hurt and confusion swirling. "Why didn't you tell me you have an identical twin sister who is clearly unstable and hates you? How could I?" Sarah's voice broke. "How do I explain her? She's not just a sister. She's my shadow. She spent her entire life trying to ruin mine. I was afraid. I was ashamed." "So you let me believe you cheated on me?" Emily cried. "You let me spend the entire night thinking our marriage was over?" "No. I didn't know." Sarah was sobbing now, great racking sobs. "I didn't know she was here. I mean, I knew she was in town, she called yesterday, but I didn't know she would come to our house. I didn't know. Oh my God. The patio. That was her. That had to be her. She was here," Emily said, the reality sinking in like lead. "She came to our home, Sarah. She put on your robe. She kissed a stranger in our backyard for me to see." Sarah looked physically ill. She sank onto the sofa, her head in her hands. "The robe? It was on the hook by the back door. I did notice it was damp this morning. I don't know what I thought." She looked up, her eyes swimming with tears and a new cold dread. "She has a key." "What?" "A spare key. From years ago. To my old apartment. I never got it back. But it wouldn't fit this lock. How did she get in?" But Emily was remembering the sliding door. It had been left ajar. She didn't need a key. You left the door unlocked. When you went to check the draft, maybe she was already out there hiding. The two women stared at each other, the magnitude of the violation settling over them. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity. This was an invasion. It was an attack. "She's trying to break us up," Emily said, her voice flat. "She's trying to replace you." "She's tried before," Sarah whispered, her face ashen. "In college. She pretended to be me. She tried to break up me and my girlfriend then. She told her I'd been cheating. It almost worked." A cold, hard anger was beginning to replace Emily's fear. This wasn't just a family dispute. This was pathological. "Well, it's not going to work this time," Emily said, her jaw setting. "She wants to play games. Fine. But she's not just playing with you anymore. She's playing with me." Sarah looked at Emily, a fragile hope in her eyes. You believe me?" "I believe you," Emily said, crossing the room and finally taking her wife's hands. They were ice cold. "It wasn't you. It was Sophia. And now, we have to figure out how to stop her." But as Emily held her wife, a dark thought crept into her mind. Sophia had been so confident, so dismissive. This felt like only the first move in a much larger, more dangerous game. Sophia hadn't just come to town to cause a fight. He had come to win. The following week was a new kind of torment. The immediate threat seemed to have passed. Sophia did not reappear. But her presence lingered in their home like a toxic residue. Emily and Sarah were united in their knowledge of the truth, but the trust that had been their foundation was fractured, and they were walking on the broken pieces. Every time Sarah walked into a room, Emily's heart would leap with a jolt of adrenaline before her brain could register it's Sarah. It's my Sarah. Sarah, for her part, was drowning in a sea of guilt and fear. She felt responsible for bringing this darkness into their home. She spent hours on the phone with her mother trying to find out where Sophia was staying, but her sister was a ghost, leaving no trail. They changed the locks on all the doors and installed a security camera by the patio, but it felt like placing a bandage on a mortal wound. The real damage was internal. Sophia had known exactly where to strike. She hadn't just attacked their marriage, she had attacked Emily's perception of reality. And Sophia, it turned out, was far from finished. Her methods just became more subtle, more cruel. The gaslighting campaign began. It started with small things. Emily would come home from work to find the thermostat cranked up to an oppressive heat. Sarah hated the heat, she was always cold. When Emily mentioned it, Sarah would look baffled. I didn't touch it. It was fine when I left. Then items began to move. Emily's car keys, which she always left in the ceramic bowl by the door, would turn up in the freezer. A book Emily was reading would be found on a shelf in the garage. Each time, Sarah would swear she hadn't touched it. Emily, why would I put your keys in the freezer? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know, Sarah. But I didn't do it, and you're the only other one here. Emily would shout, her frustration mounting. Maybe you're just stressed, honey. You've been forgetful lately, Sarah would reply, her tone laced with a tentative, worried concern that only made Emily angrier. Emily felt like she was being tied in knots. She knew this was Sophia. The twin must have made a copy of the new house key, or she was finding ways in. A window left unlocked, the garage code. She was slipping in and out of their home, a malicious phantom moving objects, planting seeds of doubt and making Emily look unstable. And it was working. One evening, Emily was preparing a presentation for a major client. She had left the files on her desk. She went to make coffee, and when she returned, the files were gone. Not just the files, but the USB drive they were on. Sarah. Emily roared, panic seizing her. Where is my presentation? Sarah came running from the bedroom. What presentation? The one for tomorrow. The drive. It was right here. I didn't touch it, Emily, I swear. I've been in the bedroom reading. They tore the office apart. It was gone. Emily was forced to call her boss at 10 o'clock at night and explain that she had somehow lost the entire project. The humiliation was immense. She felt unprofessional, incompetent. She's doing this, Sarah. Sophia. She's trying to ruin my life too. Emily accused, pacing the living room. Emily, how? Sarah pleaded, her face pale. How is she getting in? The locks are new. The alarm is on. We would have heard it. Maybe you just misplaced it. Maybe you left it at the office. I didn't. Emily screamed so loud that Sarah flinched. The look of fear in her wife's eyes, not of an intruder but of her, stopped Emily cold. She was yelling at the wrong person. Sophia was pulling the strings, and Emily and Sarah were the puppets, dancing and fighting for her amusement. I'm sorry, Emily whispered, sinking to the floor. I'm so sorry. I'm not mad at you. I feel like I'm losing my mind. She's making me crazy. Sarah sat down, wrapping her arms around Emily. I know. It's what she does. This is her game. She did this to me all through high school. She would steal my homework, tell my friends I was talking about them just to watch the fallout. I just never thought she'd come after you. The next day the attacks escalated. They became more personal. Emily received a message on her social media account from a stranger. It was a photo. A photo of Sarah sitting at a cozy, dimly lit bar, laughing and touching the hand of the same blonde woman from the patio kiss. Emily's blood turned to ice. She looked at the timestamp. It was from the night before. The same night Emily was tearing the house apart looking for her presentation. She felt the air leave her lungs. Sarah, she called out, her voice trembling. Sarah came into the room, a towel drying her hair. What's wrong? Emily turned the phone screen toward her. Sarah's face went white. Emily, that's not. I was here. We were looking for your drive. You know I was here. I know, Emily said, her voice hollow. I know. It's her. It's Sophia. But this was different. This wasn't just moving keys. This was a calculated public performance. Sophia was out in the world, wearing Sarah's face, creating a narrative of infidelity. She was building a case against Sarah, a case that Emily, despite knowing the truth, was finding it harder and harder to ignore. The image was powerful. It was proof. She's creating evidence, Sarah, Emily said, her mind working frantically. She's building a story that you're a liar. She's not just trying to make me doubt you. She's trying to make the world doubt you. Who is she sending this to? Sarah asked, her voice thick with panic. Me. For now. Emily looked at the anonymous profile that had sent the photo. It had no friends, no other posts. It was a ghost account. "We have to go to the police," Sarah said, grabbing her coat. "And tell them what?" Emily said, the bitter reality of their situation closing in. "Tell them your identical twin sister who no one can find is pretending to be you and having drinks with a stranger? They'll think we're insane. They'll call it a civil dispute. They can't arrest someone for looking like you." They were trapped. Sophia was using her own face as a weapon and there was no defense against it. That night neither of them slept. They lay in bed back to back, the silence of the house feeling more threatening than any noise. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind, sounded like a footstep. Around 2 a.m, Emily's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another message. She opened it, her heart hammering. It wasn't a photo this time. It was a short video clip. It was filmed from inside their house, looking down the hallway from the spare bedroom. It was dark, but the timestamp in the corner was from that very night, just minutes earlier. The video was shaky. It panned slowly past their closed bedroom door, and then zoomed in on the family photos they had on the wall. The camera focused on a picture of Emily and Sarah, smiling on their wedding day. A hand entered the frame. A hand identical to Sarah's. It reached out and slowly, deliberately turned the photo frame face down against the wall. Emily let out a small, strangled cry, waking Sarah instantly. What is it?" Emily couldn't speak. She just showed Sarah the screen. Sarah's scream echoed through the house. Sophia wasn't just outside anymore. He was in the house with them. Right now. The realization that Sophia was inside the house was paralyzing. For a second, neither Emily nor Sarah could move. They were frozen in their bed, listening. The house, which had been creaking innocently moments before, was now utterly, terrifyingly silent. The video proved she was here or had been just minutes ago. She had been in the hallway right outside their door while they lay there. "The alarm," Sarah whispered, her voice choked with terror. "We never set it. We came to bed, we were fighting, we forgot." It was a devastating oversight. In their emotional turmoil, they had forgotten the one practical defense they had. Emily's survival instincts finally kicked in. She grabbed the heavy lamp from her nightstand, her hands shaking so hard she could barely hold it. "Stay here," she mouthed to Sarah. "No," Sarah whispered back, grabbing her own phone. "I'm calling the police. Right now." As Sarah frantically dialed 911, Emily slid off the bed, her feet landing silently on the carpet. She held the lamp like a club, her heart feeling like it would burst through her chest. She moved toward their bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. She could hear Sarah's hushed, panicked voice behind her. "Yes, my name is Sarah. Someone is in our house. My sister. Please, you have to hurry." Emily pushed the door open wider, centimeter by centimeter, peering into the dark hallway. Nothing. Just shadows. The photo frame of their wedding was exactly as the video had shown it, face down on the wall. The violation of it, the intimate, hateful gesture, sent a fresh wave of rage through Emily's fear. "Sophia!" Emily yelled, her voice raw. "I know you're in here. The police are on their way." Only silence answered her. The house felt empty. Too empty. "Where is she?" Sarah whispered, coming up behind her, the phone still clutched in her hand. "They're sending a car." "She's gone," Emily said, her gut twisting. "She didn't come here to hurt us. Not physically. She just came to do that. To show us she can. To show us we're not safe." They walked through the house together, flipping on every light, their shadows jumping at them from every corner. The living room. The kitchen. The office. Nothing was taken. Nothing was broken except for the one picture frame. But by the back door, the sliding glass door, they found it. A single muddy footprint on the mat. And the lock, the new high-security lock they had installed, was still intact. "The window," Emily said, moving to the small window in the laundry room which faced the dark side yard. The latch was broken, pried open from the outside. She had been planning this. She had watched them. She had waited for them to be distracted, to be vulnerable, and then she had slipped in. The police arrived 20 minutes later, two weary-looking officers who listened to the story with tired, skeptical expressions. Emily and Sarah explained about the identical twin, the harassment, the video. "You have a video?" the first officer asked, his interest piquing. Emily showed him the phone. He watched the short clip, his brow furrowed. And this profile that sent it, do you know who it is? We believe it's her using a fake account, Emily explained. And you're sure that hand isn't yours? He asked, looking at Sarah. I was in bed with my wife. Sarah protested, her voice rising with indignation. She's terrorizing us. Ma'am, I understand you're scared, the second officer said, his tone placating. But what we have here is a possible trespassing. But you said nothing was stolen. The person in the video looks identical to you. Your sister. Do you have a restraining order against her? No, Sarah admitted. I haven't seen her in years, not until this week. I didn't think I needed one. Well, you should get one, the first officer said, snapping his notebook shut. Without that, or without us catching her in the act, there's very little we can do. It's a family dispute. We'll file a report. We'll patrol the area. But my advice: get a better alarm system. And get a lawyer. They left. Just like that. Emily and Sarah were alone again, the flashing blue and red lights disappearing down the street, leaving them in the sterile brightness of their own home, which no longer felt like their own. It felt like a stage, and Sophia was the director. A family dispute, Sarah repeated, her voice hollow. She breaks into our home, she threatens us, and it's a family dispute. They don't get it, Emily said, rubbing her temples. They can't. Phew, bizarre. How do you prove someone is pretending to be you when they have your face? They sat at the kitchen table as the sun began to rise, the gray light filtering in, making them both look pale and exhausted. The adrenaline had faded, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. We can't live like this, Emily said, her voice flat. We can't be prisoners in our own home waiting for her to move another object or send another picture. We have to find her. Find her. Sarah looked terrified. Emily, she's dangerous. You saw what her file said. Fraud. Harassment. She's not well. Emily had, in the days following the cafe meeting, done her own digging. It wasn't just college pranks. Sophia had a real disturbing history. She had forged checks in their father's name. She had been arrested for stalking an ex-girlfriend. She had a history of compulsive lying and manipulation, all documented in public records that Sarah had clearly been too afraid or too ashamed to ever look up. I know she's dangerous, Emily said, her voice hardening. That's why we have to be dangerous. We can't wait for her to act. We have to act first. We need to know where she is, what she's planning. How, Emily? How do we find a ghost? She's not a ghost, Emily said, her mind starting to work, the fear being replaced by a cold, clear anger. She's a person. She has to be staying somewhere. She has to be meeting someone. That blonde woman. She's real. Sophia is contacting her. She's using a phone. She's using money. Emily stood up, a new resolve in her eyes. You said she's jealous. You said she wants your life. What part of your life would she try to take first? Sarah thought for a long moment. My job. He always envied my job. I'm a graphic designer at a good firm. She's never been able to hold a job. She'd say I stole her talent, that she was the real artist. Okay, Emily said. That's a start. And what about your friends? I don't know. I've drifted from a lot of them. We've been so focused on us. That's what she's counting on, Emily said. She's isolating you. First from me, now from everyone else. She's creating a new life as Sarah. And in that life you're flaky, you're a cheater, and you're unstable. A sudden, terrible thought struck Emily. By presentation. The USB drive. She didn't just hide it. She took it. Why? To hurt me. To make me fail. To destabilize my life, so I'm too busy putting out my own fires to help you fight yours. This is a war on two fronts, Sarah. She's not just trying to replace you. She's trying to dismantle us, piece by piece. So what do we do? Sarah asked, her voice small. We set a trap, Emily said. She's an actor. She's playing a part. But she doesn't know the script. Not all of it. We do. We know your life. She only knows what she can see from the outside. We have to use that against her. We have to find a way to make her show her hand, to prove to the world that she is not you. Emily paced the kitchen. We need bait. Something only the real Sarah would know about. Or something the fake Sarah would get wrong. She looked at Sarah, a plan forming, audacious and terrifying. She wants to be you? Fine. Let's give her the chance. The plan was simple in concept but terrifying in execution. Sophia was using technology to terrorize them so they would use it to hunt her. Emily, who worked in data analysis, felt a cold sense of professional focus settle over her. This was no longer just a personal crisis. It was a problem of information. Sophia was a black box and Emily needed to find a way to light it up. She's contacting you, right? Emily asked, sitting at her desk, her computer screen glowing in the dark room. Who? Sophia? Sarah asked, wrapped in a blanket, looking small and lost. No. The people she's pretending to be you with. The blonde woman from the picture. The anonymous account that sent the video, Emily clarified. She's building a fake life, but she's using your image to do it. That means she's monitoring you. She's watching your social media, your life, to know what to mimic. I guess so, Sarah said. I'm not very active. I post pictures of the garden sometimes. That's her window, Emily said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. We're going to give her something to look at. Emily pulled up Sarah's main social media page. It was sparse, just as she'd said. Photos of flowers, a picture of their cat, a shared article about art. We need to create a new post, Emily said. Something that only the real Sarah would post, but with a hidden trap. Like what? Emily thought. She's jealous of your job, right? Your art. Let's use that. Together they crafted a post. It was a picture of one of Sarah's older, half-finished paintings, one she kept in the back of her closet. The caption read, "Found this old project. Thinking of finally finishing it for the annual Art in the Park show. It's been too long." But the Art in the Park show isn't for 6 months, Sarah said, confused. And I never submitted to that one. I always do the fall gallery. Exactly, Emily said, a grim smile touching her lips. The fall gallery is the prestigious one. Art in the Park is the amateur one. You'd never do it. But Sophia, the failed artist, she wouldn't know the difference. He just sees an art show. She sees a chance for her, as you, to get attention. But what's the trap? The trap isn't the post itself, Emily said. It's the link. She embedded a link in the post, masked as the official sign-up page for the art show. This isn't a link to the art show. It's a custom URL I just created. It's a tracker. Anyone who clicks it, I'll get an IP address. I'll know their location, what kind of device they're using. If Sophia is monitoring your page, she won't be able to resist clicking it. She'll want to know all about the show she's entering. They posted it. And then they waited. The hours ticked by. Every notification on Sarah's phone made them both jump. It was a fake like from an old college acquaintance. A comment from her aunt. Nothing from Sophia. Maybe she's not watching, Sarah said, her voice full of disappointment. She's watching, Emily said, her eyes fixed on the analytics screen she had set up. She's just careful. They went to bed, but neither slept. The house was locked down like a fortress. Emily had wedged a chair under the laundry room window, and they set the alarm, triple-checking it. At 3:17 a.m. Emily's laptop, which she'd left on by the bed, chimed. A single soft notification. A new click on the link. Emily was out of bed in a second, Sarah right behind her. She looked at the screen. The IP address was registered. It was a public network, a 24-hour coffee shop downtown about 5 miles away. The device was a mobile phone. She's there, Emily whispered, her heart pounding. She's there right now. What do we do? Sarah asked, grabbing her robe. Do we go there? Call the police. No, Emily said, thinking fast. The police will show up, she'll see them, and she'll be gone. She'll know we're on to her. This isn't enough to arrest her. We need more. We need to know where she's staying. This is just where she's getting Wi-Fi. But we have a location, Emily. We can find her. It's a start. We know she's in that neighborhood. Emily looked at the screen, her mind racing. The tracker gave her more data. The mobile provider. The type of phone. It was an older, less common model. Okay, Emily said, a new plan forming. She's smart. She's using public Wi-Fi to mask her real location. But she's also arrogant. He clicked the link. She thinks she's smarter than you. We need to get her to a place where we can, what? Confront her. Sarah was trembling. We need to get her to a place where she can't lie, Emily said. A place where her face isn't enough. We need to get her to expose herself. They waited until morning. The tracker showed no more activity. Sophia was gone from the coffee shop. Now phase 2, Emily said. She's taken the bait. She thinks you're entering an art show. So now, you're going to get supplies. I am. No, she is. But she's going to think you are. Emily called Sarah's favorite local art supply store, a small independent shop where Sarah knew the owner, Linda, by name. Emily explained the situation. It was a risky move, but Linda had known Sarah for a decade. She was shocked, but she believed her. Here's the plan, Emily explained to Linda over the phone. My wife, Sarah, is going to post that she's going to your store this afternoon to pick up the usual supplies for her painting. The post will be public. Her sister, Sophia, who looks identical to her, will almost certainly be monitoring her. We believe she will come to the store pretending to be Sarah to buy the supplies herself? To cancel the order? To make Sarah look bad? That's what she does. Good heavens, Linda said, her voice thin. That's monstrous. What do you need me to do? I need you to play along, Emily said. When Sophia comes in, treat her like Sarah. But ask her a question. A specific question. Ask her what she needs for the Art in the Park show. And my real wife, Sarah, always uses a very specific, expensive brand of oil paint. She's the only one who buys it from you. Sophia won't know that. She'll probably ask for cheap acrylics or something generic. And Linda, I need you to have your security camera running. The one over the register. I need her on tape claiming to be Sarah. And what if the real Sarah comes in? Linda asked, sounding nervous. The real Sarah isn't coming in, Emily said. The real Sarah will be in the car across the street with me. On the phone with you. The plan was set. Sarah made the post. Off to my favorite art store to pick up my usual supplies for the new project. So excited. They drove to the store and parked across the street in a spot with a clear view of the entrance. Sarah dialed Linda's number at the shop and put it on speaker but muted. We're here, Linda. We're watching. Okay, dear, Linda's voice tinny. Just be safe. They waited. 1 hour passed. Then cars came and went. Emily was starting to think it was a failure. She's not coming, Sarah whispered, her shoulders slumping. Wait, Emily said, grabbing Sarah's arm. Look. The corner. A woman was walking down the street. Dark hair. Sarah's familiar coat. The same walk. It was her. That's her, Sarah breathed, her hand flying to her mouth. That's Sophia. They watched, hearts in their throats, as Sophia paused outside the shop, checked her reflection in the glass, straightened her coat, and then, with a confident smile, pushed open the door. On the phone they heard the chime of the shop bell. Sarah. How lovely to see you. Linda's voice was bright, only a slight tremor betraying her nerves. Hi, Linda, they heard Sophia reply. Her voice was a perfect imitation of Sarah's. It was chilling. Just here to pick up my supplies. For the show. Of course. The Art in the Park show, right? So exciting. Linda said. Now, did you want your usual? The Venetian oils. There was a pause. Emily held her breath. Oh, Sophia laughed, a light, airy sound. No, nothing so heavy. I'm trying a new style. Just give me a set of basic acrylics. Whatever is on sale. Emily and Sarah stared at each other. The lie was so blatant, so clear. Acrylics? Are you sure, honey? Linda pressed. You always said acrylics were for amateurs. A new leaf, Sophia said, her voice turning slightly cold. Just ring me up. Sarah Collins, on my account. She was using Sarah's full name. He was on camera. He was lying. Got her, Emily whispered, a feeling of triumph mixing with the dread. We got her. Thank you, Linda. I'll take those, Sophia said, her voice, a perfect mimicry of Sarah's, crackling over the phone's speaker. Certainly, dear, Linda replied, her voice strained. That will be $42. Emily and Sarah watched from the car as Sophia, wearing Sarah's face, tapped her card on the payment terminal. She was buying cheap paints under Sarah's name. It was concrete proof of the impersonation. She's leaving, Emily said, her hands tight on the steering wheel. Linda, thank you. We'll be in touch. She hung up before Linda could reply. What now? Sarah asked, her eyes wide as she watched her twin sister exit the store, carrying a small bag. Do we follow her? We follow her, Emily said, her voice firm. She started the car, waiting until Sophia was a half block ahead, and then pulled out into traffic, keeping a safe distance. She's on foot. She must be staying somewhere nearby. Or she's heading to a bus. This was the most dangerous part. They were no longer behind screens. They were in the real world, tracking a woman who had proven to be manipulative and unstable. Sophia walked with a purpose, her stride confident, almost arrogant. She turned a corner, heading away from the main commercial street and into a quieter, residential area filled with older apartment buildings and duplexes. She's not heading for a bus, Emily murmured, her eyes scanning everything. She lives around here. Sophia turned again, walking up the short pathway to a faded 3-story apartment building. She fumbled in her pocket for a key, opened the main door and disappeared inside. That's it, Emily said, pulling the car over to the curb half a block away, partially hidden by a large tree. She's in there. So, we call the police? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. We have the footage from Linda. We know where she is. And what? Emily said, the frustration returning. They knock on her door? He denies it. He says you were the one in the store. It's her word against ours. The video, it just shows you as far as they're concerned. We need something more. We need to catch her in the lie, in a way she can't escape. Emily, I don't want to go in there, Sarah whispered, her fear palpable. We're not going in. Not yet. Emily stared at the building. We know where she is. That's the first victory. Now we use it. They sat there for an hour, the engine off, just watching. A few people came and went, but not Sophia. We need to know which apartment is hers, Emily said. She looked at Sarah. And I think I know how to find out. But you're not going to like it. What? We need a distraction. We need to get her out of the building. And we need to get you inside. What? No. Emily, no. I'm not. I can't. What if I run into her? You won't. Because I'll be the one to get her out. Emily's mind was racing. She's expecting you to be at home painting with your new supplies. She's not expecting me. What are you going to do? I'm going to go to that coffee shop. The one she used last night. I'm going to accidentally run into her. But she's in the building. She's not going to stay in there forever. He's arrogant. She thinks she's winning. She'll go out. And she'll go back to that coffee shop. It's her safe spot. It was a long shot, but it was all Emily had. They drove to the coffee shop, the one whose IP address had been their first clue. They sat. They waited. For 4 agonizing hours they sat, drinking bitter coffee, watching the door. Just as Emily was about to give up, the bell on the door chimed. In walked Sophia. She was wearing a different jacket now, but it was unmistakably her. She didn't even glance at Emily, who was partially hidden in a booth. She went straight to the counter, ordered, and sat at a small table by the window, pulling out her phone. Okay, Emily whispered to Sarah, who was waiting in the car. She's here. I'm going in. Give me 5 minutes. Then, I need you to do your part. Emily, I'm scared. I know. But she's only powerful when she's hiding. We're dragging her into the light. You can do this. Emily got out of the car. She walked back into the coffee shop, taking a path that would lead her directly past Sophia's table. She pretended to be looking at her phone and then bumped into the table hard, spilling a bit of Sophia's drink. Oh my God, I am so sorry, Emily gushed, grabbing napkins. Sophia looked up, her eyes flashing with pure venom. The mask was off. This was not the charming woman from the cafe. This was a cornered animal. Watch where you're going, she hissed. Sophia, Emily said, her voice dropping cold and low. We need to talk. Sophia's face went pale, then hardened. I don't know who you are. Yes, you do. You were at my house. You're terrorizing my wife. It's over. Sophia laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. My sister is paranoid. And it looks like it's catching. You can't prove a thing. Can't I? Emily said, leaning in. The art store, Sophia. The acrylics. We have you on video lying. Using her name. The color drained from Sophia's face. She had for the first time been outplayed. She hadn't realized the art store was a trap. You're bluffing, she spat, but her confidence was gone. Am I? Emily smiled, a cold, predatory smile that wasn't her own. While you're sitting here, my wife, the real Sarah, is at your apartment building. He's talking to your landlord. She's showing him your picture. And hers. She's showing him the police report. This was the real bluff. Sarah was, at that moment, supposed to be walking into the lobby of the building, not to talk to the landlord but to check the mailboxes. To find Sophia's apartment number. Sophia's eyes widened in panic. She grabbed her phone and bolted, shoving past Emily and running out of the coffee shop, sprinting down the street toward her building. Emily ran after her. Sarah, she's coming, she yelled into her phone. She's running. Get out of there. Now. Across town, Sarah had just stepped into the lobby. Her heart was hammering. She looked at the wall of mailboxes. Collins. Collins. There. Apartment 2B. Her phone buzzed in her hand with Emily's frantic call. She's coming. Get out. Sarah's blood ran cold. She turned to run, but the heavy glass door of the lobby was already being yanked open. Sophia stood there, heaving, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. The two sisters, the original and the shadow, were face to face for the first time in years. You, Sophia seethed, her voice a low growl. You ruin everything. Sarah was frozen. All the years of fear, of being undermined and tormented, came rushing back. Her voice was trapped in her throat. What's the matter, Sarah? Sophia sneered, taking a step into the lobby, letting the door swing shut behind her. Cat got your tongue? Or are you just shocked I built a life of my own? This isn't a life, Sarah finally whispered, finding her voice. This is sickness, Sophia. You're terrorizing us. I'm taking what's mine. Sophia screamed, her voice echoing in the small, tiled space. You have everything. You have the perfect wife, the perfect house, the perfect job. And what do I have? Nothing. A tiny room in a dump, pretending to be you just to feel normal for 5 minutes. So you decided to destroy my life instead? Sarah cried, her fear turning to an old, familiar anger. That's your answer? To burn it all down. It should have been mine. Sophia lunged, grabbing the front of Sarah's coat. It was always supposed to be mine. Get off her. Emily burst through the door, having sprinted the last 3 blocks. She slammed into Sophia, tackling her away from Sarah. The 3 of them went down in a heap, Sophia's bag scattering, the cheap acrylic paint sliding across the floor. Sophia scrambled to her feet, her eyes wild. She looked at Emily, then at Sarah, then at the open door. She was trapped. She was exposed. With a final animalistic snarl, she shoved past Emily again and ran. She burst out onto the street, flagging down a passing taxi, and jumped in, screaming at the driver to go. Emily and Sarah rushed out onto the sidewalk, watching as the taxi sped away, disappearing around the corner. She was gone. They stood there, panting in the middle of the sidewalk. The confrontation had been sudden, violent, and utterly unresolved. She's gone, Sarah whispered, shaking. She'll be back, Emily said, her voice grim. She put her arm around her wife. But this time, we're not waiting. I know where she lived. Apartment 2B. What are we going to do? We're going to end this, Emily said. We're going into her apartment. We're going to find out who she's working with. We're going to find that blonde woman. We're going to find everything. The adrenaline from the chase faded, leaving Emily and Sarah trembling on the sidewalk. Going to the police now with Sophia gone felt useless. They had no new proof, only a story of a chaotic confrontation in a lobby. We have to go in, Emily insisted, her voice low. She ran Sarah. He's terrified. She left everything behind. Her apartment is the key. It's where the rest of her plan is. Emily, it's breaking and entering, Sarah whispered, her law-abiding nature recoiling. It's survival, Emily retorted, her gaze fixed on the building's entrance. She broke into our home. She broke into our lives. We are done playing defense. She looked at Sarah, her eyes softening. But I won't make you. You can wait in the car. I'm going in. Sarah looked at the building, her jaw tightening. The fear was still there, but something new was mixing with it. A cold, hard anger. This was her sister, her shadow, and she had dominated her life for too long. No, Sarah said, her voice stronger. She used my face. I'm going in with you. I need to see. The lobby door was still unlocked. They slipped inside, their footsteps echoing in the silence. They climbed the stairs to the second floor, their hearts pounding in unison. Apartment 2B. The lock was standard. Emily looked at Sarah, who was carrying the bag Sophia had dropped, the one with the art supplies. Tucked in an outer pocket was a set of keys. She dropped these, Sarah whispered, holding them up. With a shaky hand, Emily took the keys. The second one she tried clicked and the lock turned. They pushed the door open, bracing themselves. The apartment was not what they expected. It wasn't a dump, as Sophia had claimed. It was small, a single studio room, but it was obsessively neat. And it was a shrine. One entire wall was covered in photographs. Not of Sophia but of Sarah. There were pictures of Sarah from high school, pictures from college. But there were also new pictures. Surveillance photos. Sarah walking to her car from work. Sarah and Emily laughing in their garden, taken from a distance. Sarah at the grocery store. "Oh my God," Sarah breathed, her hand flying to her mouth. She's been watching me. For how long? It was a chilling, meticulous display of obsession. But it wasn't just photos. There were notes. Timelines. 7:15 a.m. Leaves for work. 7:40 a.m. Waters garden. 6 p.m. A home. 6:30 p.m. Gets mail. She learned our routines, Emily said, her stomach twisting. She knew exactly when to break in. She knew when you'd be alone. On a small desk in the corner sat a laptop, open. And beside it a stack of paper. It was Sarah's graphic design portfolio, but with small, subtle changes. The name on the cover page was Sophia Collins. She copied my portfolio, Sarah said, picking it up, her voice numb. She was going to what? Apply for jobs as me. Or replace you, Emily said, her voice dark. She pointed to a notebook lying open. It was filled with Sarah's signature, practiced over and over, page after page. This was more than jealousy. This was a methodical, long-term plan to erase Sarah and take her place. Who is she? Sarah asked, pointing to the desk. There was a framed photo. It was Sophia arm in arm with the blonde woman from the patio, the woman from the bar. They were smiling, looking happy, celebratory. That's her partner, Emily realized. The blonde woman. She's not a hired stranger. She's in on it. She's helping her. This changed everything. Sophia wasn't acting alone. She had an accomplice, someone who was actively participating in the plan. The kiss on the patio. It wasn't just a show for Emily. It was real. Sophia was in a relationship with this woman, all while planning to steal her sister's life. Emily moved to the laptop. It was password protected. But she didn't need to get in. Taped to the monitor was a small yellow note, a reminder. Jenna, 8 p.m. The Grove. Celebrate. Jenna, Emily read. That must be her. The blonde. And they're meeting tonight. The Grove. That's that expensive restaurant downtown. Celebrate. They think they won. Sophia must have told her that the art store plan worked. That she fooled us. So what do we do? Sarah asked, looking around the terrifying, obsessive room. We call the police. We show them this. This is proof. Stalking. Conspiracy. Yes, Emily said, pulling out her phone and taking pictures of everything. The wall. The notes. The portfolio. The signature book. We are taking this to the police. But first, we're going to that meeting. Emily, no. We have what we need. Let the police handle it. The police will go to the restaurant and they'll just deny it. Jenna will say she's just having dinner. Sophia will be gone. Well, they're celebrating. They're arrogant. They're in public. That's where we confront them. Not in a lobby, not in the dark. In a bright, crowded restaurant where everyone can see. Emily's eyes were hard. Sophia used your face to lie. Tonight, you're going to use your face to tell the truth. How? We're going to the Grove. But we are getting there first. And when Sophia and Jenna walk in, they're not going to find an empty table. They're going to find us. What do I say? Sarah was shaking again. You're not going to have to say anything, Emily said, a grim smile on her face. You're just going to sit there. How is Sophia going to explain to her new girlfriend that the woman she's been pretending to be is sitting right across from her? The plan was audacious. It was a high-stakes emotional gamble. But it was the only way. Sophia's power was in the lie that there was only one Sarah Collins. That lie was about to be shattered. They left the apartment, locking the door behind them, taking nothing but the photos on Emily's phone. They drove straight to the police station. This time they didn't get the night shift patrol. They got a detective. They laid it all out. The twin. The patio. The video from inside the house. The art store trap. And finally the apartment. Emily showed him the pictures of the surveillance wall, the forged signatures, the timeline of their lives. The detective's face, which had started as skeptical, hardened. This, he said, tapping the photo of the surveillance wall, is not a family dispute. This is aggravated stalking. The impersonation, the coordinated effort. This is conspiracy. The problem, he continued, is that she's in the wind. We can put out an alert for her, but she looks exactly like you, ma'am, he said to Sarah. That complicates things. We know where she's going to be, Emily said, her voice steady. Tonight. 8 o'clock. The Grove. She's meeting her accomplice, Jenna. The detective looked at them. You're sure? We're sure, Emily said. And we're going to be there. No, you're not, the detective said, standing up. You're victims. You're going home. We will be there. We'll set up a plainclothes unit. If she shows, we'll bring her in. And her partner. You've done enough. Now let us do our job. The relief that flooded Sarah was so immense she almost collapsed. It was out of their hands. They were finally, truly being helped. But as they walked out of the station, Emily couldn't shake a cold, dark feeling. The detective was right, but Sophia was slippery. What if she sensed the police? What if she didn't show? He told us to go home, Sarah said, her voice light with a hope she hadn't felt in weeks. I know, Emily said, opening the car door for her. And we will. But we're going to make one quick stop first. Where? The Grove. We're not going to be there at 8. We're going to be there at 7. We're not going to be a part of the police trap. We're just going to be patrons. Having dinner. Right at the table they're supposed to have. Emily, why? Sarah pleaded. This is dangerous. It's a backup plan, Emily said, her expression unyielding. If the police miss her, we won't. The Grove was the kind of restaurant where the lights were low, the music was soft, and the prices were high. It was designed for quiet, intimate conversations, which made it the perfect, terrible place for a confrontation. Emily had called ahead, pretending to be Jenna, and confirmed the 8 p.m. reservation, changing it to 7 p.m. and requesting the most visible table in the center of the room. At 7 p.m. Emily and Sarah walked in. They were dressed nicely as if for a date night, but the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Reservation for Jenna, Emily said calmly to the host. They were seated. A waiter brought them water, menus. To anyone else they were just another couple. What if the police see us? Sarah whispered, her hands clasped. After 7 years she found out her wife's humiliating affair, when her boss exposed her in a public meeting, as clasping and unclasping in her lap. The detective said he'd have a plainclothes unit, Emily said, scanning the room. They're probably here already. They'll see us, they'll be annoyed, but they won't blow their own cover. We're just insurance. She saw them. 2 men dressed in suits that were just a little too stiff, sitting at the bar nursing waters. They were watching the door. Emily and Sarah ordered food they had no intention of eating. They sat in silence, the minutes stretching into an eternity. 7:30 p.m. 7:45 p.m. Every time the door opened, Sarah's heart would seize. At 7:55 p.m. the door opened again. It was Sophia. She was smiling, laughing, her arm linked with the blonde woman, Jenna. Sophia was wearing a new dress, a sleek black one that Sarah would never have chosen. She looked radiant, happy, and triumphant. They walked toward the host stand and Sophia's eyes scanned the dining room. Her gaze landed on their table. She stopped. The smile evaporated from her face, replaced by a look of utter, profound shock. She froze, her hand tightening on Jenna's arm. Jenna, confused, followed her gaze. She looked at the table, saw Emily, and then she saw Sarah. She looked from Sarah to Sophia and back to Sarah. Her brow furrowed in confusion. Sophia, what is this? Jenna asked, her voice audible in the sudden lull. Who is that? Sophia couldn't speak. She just stared at Sarah, her face a mask of disbelief and rage. All her careful planning, all her victories, were crumbling in this one impossible moment. Hi, Sophia, Sarah said, her voice miraculously steady. You're late. We started without you. The entire restaurant wasn't looking, but the tables nearby were. The two men at the bar were on their feet, but they weren't moving in, not yet. They were watching. What are you doing here? Sophia finally spat, her voice a low hiss. She looks just like you, Jenna stammered, pulling her arm away from Sophia. Sophia, what is going on? She's my sister, Jenna, Sophia said, her mind racing, trying to find a lie, any lie that would hold. She's obsessed with me. She follows me everywhere. She's mentally unstable. Am I? Sarah said, standing up slowly. Am I the unstable one? Or is it the woman who built a shrine to me in her apartment? The one who practices my signature? The one who breaks into my house and terrorizes my wife? Jenna's face went white. A shrine? Sophia, what is she talking about? She's lying. Sophia shrieked, her control finally snapping. The entire restaurant was watching now. She's the liar. She's always been the liar. She stole my life. No, Sophia, Sarah said, her voice ringing with a clarity and strength Emily had never heard. You just didn't like your own. So you tried to steal mine. You impersonated me. You used my name at the art store. The art store. Jenna looked at Sophia. You told me your sister, was the one who was impersonating you. You told me she was the one trying to ruin your life, that we were catching her. The lie was unraveling. It was clear Sophia had recruited Jenna under a false pretense, painting herself as the victim and Sarah as the evil twin. She's twisting everything. Sophia insisted, but she was backing away, her eyes darting between Sarah, Jenna, and the door. Is she? Emily spoke for the first time, her voice cold and level. Did she also lie about the wall of photos? The surveillance notes? Did she lie about the video you took inside our house? Jenna looked at Sophia with dawning horror. A video? Inside their house? Sophia, you told me they were harassing you. She is. They are. Sophia was cornered. The carefully constructed world she had built for Jenna was collapsing. It's over, Sophia, the detective said, stepping up to the table, his badge in his hand. Sophia Collins, you're under arrest for aggravated stalking, conspiracy, and breaking and entering. The second officer was already moving to a stunned and silent Jenna. Ma'am, we need you to come with us. We have a few questions. Sophia didn't fight. She didn't scream. She just deflated. The rage, the fire, the arrogant confidence. It all vanished, leaving behind a woman who looked exhausted, empty, and for the first time small. As the officer cuffed her, her eyes met Sarah's. There was no remorse. No apology. Just a cold, bottomless hatred. Then she was gone, escorted out of the restaurant, the diners watching in stunned silence. Jenna, crying, was led out separately. Emily reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. It was shaking violently. It's over, Emily whispered. It's finally over. Sarah looked at her, and the tears she had been holding back for weeks finally came. They weren't tears of fear. They were tears of release. She had faced her shadow and she was at last standing in the light. But as they sat there, the uneaten food growing cold between them, Emily knew that over was a complicated word. The threat was gone, but the wounds were deep. Sophia was arrested, but the memory of her, the violation, would live with them forever. The healing was only just beginning. The weeks that followed were quiet, but the silence was different. It was no longer the tense, watchful silence of a house under siege. It was a soft, hesitant silence, the kind that comes after a violent storm, when the survivors are just beginning to peek outside. Sophia was in custody. With the evidence from the apartment, the video from the art store, and the full testimony from a cooperating and horrified Jenna, the case against her was overwhelming. Jenna, it turned out, had been just as manipulated as Emily. Sophia had met her months earlier, feeding her an elaborate story of an abusive, obsessive twin sister, Sarah, who had stolen her identity and was trying to have her committed. Sophia had convinced Jenna that every move they made, the surveillance, the gaslighting, the patio kiss, was part of a plan to gather evidence against Sarah, to expose her and get Sophia's life back. The discovery that Sophia was the true predator had devastated her. With the threat of a long trial and Jenna's testimony, Sophia's lawyer pushed her to take a plea bargain. She was sentenced to a long-term mandatory stay in a psychiatric facility, coupled with a permanent restraining order that barred her from ever contacting Sarah or Emily again. The legal battle was over. But the personal one, as Emily had predicted, was far from finished. Their house, which they had once loved, now felt tainted. Every shadow in the hallway looked like a person. Every time the wind rattled the laundry room window, Sarah would jump. The wedding photo, which they had placed back on the wall, now seemed to side view, the one Sophia had taken. "I can't stay here," Sarah said quietly one evening as they sat on the patio, the same patio where the nightmare had begun. I look at that glass door and all I see is her. I see the reflection you saw." Emily nodded. He felt it too. "Me neither." They put the house up for sale the next day. It sold quickly. They moved to a new apartment, a bright, modern place on the other side of town, high up, with a big balcony that overlooked the city, far away from dark yards and shadowy patios. They donated the blue robe. They bought a new couch. They threw out the old coffee maker. They methodically and quietly erased every object that Sophia had touched, or that had been present during the terror. But healing was more than new furniture. It was in the small, difficult moments. For a long time, Emily would wake in the night, her heart pounding, and stare at Sarah sleeping beside her. She would trace the familiar, beloved lines of her wife's face in the dark, needing to reassure herself again and again that it was Sarah, that she was real. And for Sarah, the damage was deeper. Sophia hadn't just attacked her marriage, she had attacked her identity. "I look in the mirror," Sarah confessed to Emily one night, her voice thick, "and I see her. I see her anger. I see her coldness. I question my own motives. When I get annoyed, I wonder, is this me or is this her? She poisoned my own face." "No," Emily said, taking her wife's face in her hands, forcing her to meet her gaze. "She didn't. Look at me. I see you. I see the woman who rescues spiders. I see the artist who stays up all night because a color isn't right. I see the person who was terrified but who found the courage to walk into that lobby, and who stood up in that restaurant. That is who you are. She's the shadow, Sarah. You are the light. She just tried to convince you otherwise." They started going to therapy both individually and together. Sarah had to unpack a lifetime of emotional manipulation at the hands of her sister. Emily had to work through the trauma of being gaslit, of having her own reality turned into a weapon against her. It was slow. It was not linear. Some days were good, full of laughter and the easy comfort they used to share. Other days were hard, when a stranger on the street with dark hair would make Sarah freeze, or when Emily would come home and for a split second, feel a jolt of panic upon seeing Sarah in the kitchen, her back turned. But they talked. They stopped hiding their fears from each other. The secret of Sophia, which Sarah had held in shame for so long, was now out in the open, and its power was diminished. And the doubt that Sophia had planted between them, the "did you or didn't you," was replaced by an unshakable, battle-tested certainty. About a year after the confrontation, Sarah had her first solo art show. It wasn't the Fall Gallery. It was her own. She had been painting frantically, channeling all the pain and fear and anger onto the canvas. The centerpiece of the show was a diptych, 2 identical canvases. One was dark, chaotic, full of jagged lines and smeared, angry colors. The other was the exact same composition, but rendered in bright, warm, peaceful light. She had titled it, "The Unfamiliar Reflection." Emily stood in the crowded gallery, watching her wife talk to admirers, her face bright, confident, and entirely her own. She was no longer looking over her shoulder. She was no longer afraid of her own face in the mirror. That night they went home to their apartment. They stood on the balcony looking at the city lights. "It's quiet tonight," Sarah said, leaning her head on Emily's shoulder. "It is," Emily agreed, wrapping her arms around her. The fear was gone. It had left, finally, chased away by time, by therapy, and by a love that had been tested by the most bizarre, terrifying fire, and had, against all odds, survived. They were not the same 2 women who had sat on the couch that Friday night so long ago. They were stronger. They were scarred. But they were, completely and finally, together.